try to make a negative comment about what happened about Charlie Kirk, and you too can be pulled, even your show. Good evening and welcome to Give Me a Break. I'm Jonathan Carmody. If you heard the news, Jimmy Kimmel Live was indefinitely suspended because Jimmy Kimmel made some inappropriate comments all about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, we're not going to be saying anything that I'm not going to be saying anything negative because I don't want to get shut down as well. But isn't it free speech? Well, yes, it is. Sometimes free speech has limits. As we're about to show you, you too can be shell-shocked. Take a look.
There's intense reaction to Jimmy Kimmel's sudden suspension. His show off the air indefinitely.
They should have fired him a long time ago.
President Trump today bashing Kimmel from London.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was sorry because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk.
On social media, the president went further, calling on NBC to fire their late-night comics. That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers on fake news NBC. Their ratings are also horrible. Do it, NBC. It's eerily quiet outside Jimmy Kimmel's studio here in Hollywood today. The banners are still up, but no sign of any production staff or any crowds. When ABC pulled the plug last night, it came as a huge surprise to everyone. Tonight we've got Wanda Sykes, Jay Shetty, and Chef Christian Petroni. That was Kimmel earlier in the day, promoting his Wednesday night show. Then around 7 p.m. came word that the show would not go on. Kimmel, in a plaid shirt, and his wife, who also works on the show, were seen leaving the studio. And that's his sidekick, Guillermo, getting in his car. The crew, looking shell-shocked, loaded equipment into trucks.
It's time for Celebrity Family Feud!
This is what the TV audience saw instead of Kimmel, a game show.
I was supposed to go over and have a chat with my friend Jimmy Kimmel.
Comedian Wanda Sykes went on social media in full makeup and camera ready and blamed the president.
He didn't end the Ukraine war or solve Gaza within his first week, but he did end freedom of speech. Love you, Jimmy.
So what did Kimmel say that led to his suspension?
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
The comment sparked outcry in MAGA world.
I hate to tell you, buddy, but the guy who shot and killed Charlie Kirk was more likely a fan of yours.
On Wednesday, the chairman of the FCC, Trump appointee Brendan Carr, urged local ABC affiliates to push back against Kimmel.
It's time for them to step up and say, this garbage isn't something that we think serves the needs of our local communities.
Shortly after that interview, two huge broadcasting companies, Nexstar and Sinclair, announced they were shelving Jimmy Kimmel Live on their ABC stations. Sinclair said they would not lift the suspension until Kimmel issues a direct apology to the Kirk family and makes a meaningful personal donation to the Kirk family and Turning Point USA. Democrats are crying foul.
This is what dictators do. This is what Xi would do. This is what Putin would do. We are not that country.
It should shake every American that the President of the United States is out there firing comedians who make fun of him.
America is a less free place if late-night comedians are not able to say and do what they want, to be able to satirize the American president, to be able to speak out about his conduct.
But the ladies of ABC's The View steered clear of the controversy, even if it was the hot topic of the day. And no reaction yet from Jimmy Kimmel himself, but many are pointing to what he wrote on social media right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Instead of the angry finger-pointing, can we just for one day agree that it is horrible and monstrous to shoot another human? On behalf of my family, we send love to the Kirks and to all the children, parents, and innocents who fall victim to senseless gun violence.
This is America, where you can say whatever the hell you want. But if you say something bad about Charlie Kirk, your ass is gonna get suspended. So if I say something bad about Charlie Kirk, I could be sued and they could win. They could sue me and they could win. Depending on one of the two. So what do you have here, boys and girls? What's the common sense perspective here? Play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That's the thing that parents tell their kids. If you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. What do? I mean, what else can you say? And there was a lot of reaction. Nearly 1.5 comments. To everything Jimmy said about Trump, this is what got him canceled. America's just one big reality show. Boycott Disney and ABC. Viewed steer critics because they knew that they are next. And I'm steering clear because if I say something bad about Charlie Kirk, they could cancel me. They could sue me. Even if you were to post on social media, they can also have you sued or pulled. Next thing you know, they could cancel my channels for something I would say. But we're not going that route, because if I were to say something negative about Charlie Kirk, then I'd be making fun of him and his dead parents. Well, not really though, because I don't joke about that. My apologies to the Kirk family, and we're keeping him. He's in our prayers. Yesterday we showed you a 2-part interview about the woman named Kathleen Willey, who says she was sexually assaulted by Bill Clinton. Next, there's two other women that were a part of this. Juanita Broaddrick and the other woman. 2 of them were sexually assaulted years ago by Bill Clinton before Monica Lewinsky. Are they to believe, or were they the subjects of what President Clinton calls to be liars? That story's next, so stay with us. Over 20 years ago, if you watched the news, you might have heard allegations that all women say that they were sexually abused by former President Bill Clinton. Since then, Bill Clinton says he had nothing to do with it. Yesterday, we showed you Yesterday, what we did, we played an interview for 60 Minutes all about one woman. Her name, Kathleen Willey. She says she was sexually assaulted by Bill Clinton. If you heard yesterday's broadcast, you might realize that she was one of the other women. There's 4 or 5. So you have Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broaddrick, the other woman, Paula Jones, Monica Lewinsky. Monica Lewinsky was first, right before Kathleen Willey. So you got Monica Lewinsky, Kathleen Willey, Paula Jones, the other woman. There's 4 women. 4. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. We only focused on number 1. Now we have 3 more women to do. And then we're going to focus on Linda Tripp, who was a part of this. And then to top off the icing on the cake, Monica Lewinsky is the icing on the cake. So when you make a cake, there's layers. So we dealt with the first layer, which is Kathleen Willey. That's the first layer. Now we go to the second layer of the cake. Juanita Broaddrick or Jane Doe number 5. And as you watch, you may ask yourself this. Is she to be believed, or should it be another round of an attack against the former president? Here's Lisa Myers.
It's important to me to tell what happened. I don't know how people are going to take this. I don't know what they're going to think after all these months and years. Why I've come forward.
Jane Doe number 5 is 56-year-old Juanita Broaddrick, a successful businesswoman who's been the subject of intense political and media speculation. Rumors about Broaddrick's story have been floating around Arkansas and Washington for years, known to both Clinton haters and supporters. Broaddrick was pulled into the Paula Jones case, met with investigators for the House Judiciary Committee, and was interviewed by Ken Starr's investigators. And though what she told Starr remained sealed, it was seen by 40 members of Congress before the impeachment vote in the House. Later, House Republican Whip Tom DeLay publicly urged senators to find out what Jane Doe number 5 had to say before deciding the fate of the president. As the whispers about her grew, Broaddrick found herself hounded by the media, and she says the subject of gossip and half-truths on the internet and in the tabloids.
All these stories are floating around. different stories of what really happened, of what people think happened, and I was tired of everybody putting their own spin on it.
Broderick's story became public last week, and since then her story has appeared in print, on radio, and TV. But much of what you may have read or heard is incomplete. While NBC News was investigating this story and seeking comment from the White House, our work became the subject of much speculation. Tonight you'll see what we were able to learn, and you'll hear from Juanita Broderick herself, a woman who remained silent for 2 decades and who admits she has lied under oath about this story in the past, but now says she wants to tell the truth. Juanita Broderick's story begins in 1978. She was a registered nurse who had started her own nursing home in Van Buren, Arkansas. Bill Clinton was the state attorney general who was running for governor.
I believe that people expect me to be ready to be governor if I'm elected.
I thought he was just something that was really going to be good for Arkansas. I thought he was a very charismatic man that had bright ideas for our state. And I just really liked him.
Broderick, whose married name at the time was Juanita Hickey, says she was so impressed with Clinton she volunteered to hand out bumper stickers and signs, her first and only political campaign. Broderick says she met Clinton for the first time when he made a campaign stop at her nursing home in the spring of 1978, when these pictures were taken.
While he was there visiting, he said, "If you're ever in the Little Rock area, please drop by our campaign office." And he said, "Well, be sure and call me when you come in. Call down to the campaign office."
Broderick says not long after that conversation, she did go to Little Rock for a nursing home meeting held at the Camelot Hotel, now the DoubleTree. She says she checked into the hotel and the next morning called Clinton campaign headquarters. She says she was told Clinton was at his apartment and to call him there.
I did call and ask him if he was going to be in the headquarters that day, and he said no, that he didn't plan to be there. He says, "Why don't I just meet you for coffee in the Camelot coffee shop?"
But Broderick says Clinton called later. She thinks it was around 9 in the morning, and asked if they could meet in her hotel room because there were reporters in the coffee shop. Did you think his interest in you at the time was personal or professional?
I thought it was professional completely.
So you thought this was going to be a business meeting?
Yes, I did. Yes, I really did.
Did you have any qualms at all about him coming to the room?
I was a little bit uneasy, but I felt a real friendship toward this man, and I didn't really feel any danger in him coming to my room. And I sort of ushered us over to the coffee. I had coffee sitting on a little table over there by the window, and it was a real pretty window view that looked down at the river. And he came around me and sort of put his arm over my shoulder to point to this little building, and said that he was real interested, if he became governor, to restore that little building. And then all of a sudden, he turned me around and started kissing me. And that was a real shock.
What did you do?
I first pushed him away. I just told him no, please don't do that. And I forget, it's been 21 years, Lisa, and I forget exactly what he was saying. It seems like he was making statements that would relate to, well, did you not know why I was coming up here? And I told him at the time, I said, I'm married, and I have other things going on in my life, and this is something that I'm not interested in.
Had you, that morning, or any other time, given him any reason to believe you might be receptive?
No. None. None whatsoever.
Then what happens?
Then he tries to kiss me again. And the second time he tries to kiss me, he starts biting on my lip. Just a minute. He starts to bite on my top lip, and I try to pull away from him. And then he forces me down on the bed. And I just was very frightened. And I tried to get away from him, and I told him no. And then didn't want this to happen. But he wouldn't listen to me.
Did you resist? Did you tell him to stop?
Yes, I told him, please don't. He was such a different person at that moment. He was just a vicious, awful person.
You said there was a point at which you stopped resisting.
Yeah.
Why?
It was a real panicky situation. And I was even to the point where I was getting very noisy, yelling, and to please stop. But that's when he would press down on my right shoulder, and he would bite on my lip.
Broderick also says the waist of her skirt and her pantyhose were torn.
When everything was over with, and he got up and straightened himself, and I was crying at the moment, and he walks to the door and calmly puts on his sunglasses, and before he goes out the door, he says, "You better get some ice on that," and then he turned and went out the door.
On your lip?
Yeah.
She estimates Clinton was in her room less than 30 minutes. Is there any way at all that Bill Clinton could have thought this was consensual?
No, not with what I told him and with how I tried to push him away. It was not consensual.
You're saying that Bill Clinton sexually assaulted you, that he raped you?
Yes.
And there's no doubt in your mind that that's what happened?
No doubt whatsoever.
While the president and his lawyer declined to be interviewed on camera, through his lawyer, the president did issue a statement saying any allegation he assaulted Broderick is absolutely false. And when asked about it today at a news conference, the president said he had nothing to add to that statement. It's important to note, and Broderick concedes, that aside from her, there are no witnesses. And as far as we know, no one saw Clinton enter or leave Broderick's room, or even the hotel. She took no photos, kept no evidence, and the hotel has no records to confirm that she stayed there. However, Broderick does have a friend who backs up her story. Norma Kelsey did not want to be interviewed on camera. However, she told us she did accompany Broderick on that business trip to Little Rock. They even shared a hotel room. Norma says when she left that morning, Broderick told her she was planning to see Clinton. But Norma says when she called around lunchtime, Broderick was upset and crying, so she returned to the room.
Well, I was very emotional just within an hour or so after it happened. And then by the time Norma got back, my whole top lip was turned out and very swollen, very ugly looking.
Norma also says that Broderick's lip and mouth were badly swollen, that her pantyhose had been ripped off, and she says Broderick told her she had been sexually assaulted by Clinton. Did you feel any internal injuries?
Of course, I felt just the whole thing you can imagine of being violated. I felt, of course there was pain.
Did you consider going to a doctor?
No. Not at all. I just wanted to get home. I wanted just to all go away. I wanted to just walk out of there and forget that it had never happened because I felt very responsible that I had allowed him to come to my room.
Broderick says she decided to leave the hotel immediately without going to the nursing home meeting. She says after Norma helped ice her lip, the two of them left Little Rock and drove more than 2 hours back to Van Buren.
We were still, Lisa, in shock over what had happened. It was like, this is a horrible thing, and I'm going to wake up in a minute, and this is not going to be true.
Norma told us that on the drive back, Broderick was very, very upset and in shock, and says Broderick blamed herself for letting Clinton up to her room. And Broderick says she never considered going to the police, especially since Clinton was the Arkansas Attorney General at the time. The question everyone is going to ask is, Juanita, why didn't you report this 21 years ago?
I didn't think anyone would believe me in the world.
And nobody would believe her ever. But if she wanted to press charges, it's too late. The statute of limitations is 6 years in the state of Arkansas. But when we come back, What did NBC News learn? And what else does Juanita Broaddrick have to say when it comes to her story? Please stay with us. Returning to our story, how did Juanita Broaddrick become known as Jane Doe number 5? Perhaps you already believe her, perhaps maybe you won't. But is her story credible? Why is she going public now? And what did NBC News learn when the president didn't want to comment? Once again, Lisa Myers.
Did you tell your husband when you got home?
No, my husband never knew.
Juanita Broaddrick says at the time of the alleged sexual assault, her marriage was on the rocks. She says she never told her husband, Gary Hickey, about the alleged incident and told him the swollen lip was the result of an accident. Hickey tells NBC News he doesn't recall either the injury or her explanation. At the time, she was having an affair with the man who would become her second husband, David Broaddrick, to whom she's been married 18 years. She says she saw David and told him what happened soon after she returned home.
Did she have any visible injuries?
Yes. She, her top lip was black.
As best you can remember, what did she tell you?
I don't remember the words, but that she had been raped by Bill Clinton.
Other than her lip, do you remember whether she had any other injuries?
Just mentally. She was just in bad shape.
Broaddrick also says her affair with David made her even more reluctant to report the incident.
I just don't think I would have been a real honorable woman back in the 70s to have been married and been having this affair. I just don't think anyone would have believed me.
So who else did Broaddrick talk to? 3 of her friends tell NBC News she told them about the alleged incident at the time. Susan Lewis.
It was very traumatic for her.
Louise Ma.
Did you urge her to report it?
No. Why not?
Because women were made victims at that time. It was always the woman's fault.
And Jean Darden, the sister of Norma Kelsey, the woman who says she saw Juanita at the hotel. Both admit they have a serious reason not to like Bill Clinton. In 1981, as governor, Clinton commuted the life sentence of their father's killer, making him eligible for parole. The stories her friends tell from 20 years ago are consistent, and Broaddrick herself says she recalls many details. For instance, the outfit she was wearing, the hotel room furnishings, and the time of year, spring. However, there is one important thing she does not remember: when the alleged incident happened. Not the date, not even the month.
Some people would say, how can you not remember the specific date of an event as traumatic as this? I really don't have an answer for that, except I remember the approximate time of the year, and I probably should remember that date, although it's something that I wanted to forget.
So NBC News tried to figure out the date of the alleged assault. Broaddrick gave us access to all the business and personal records she says she could find. We also checked public records, nursing home records, and convention schedules. And indeed, there was a nursing home meeting at the Camelot Hotel in Little Rock on April 25th, 1978. Further, state records show Broaddrick got credit for a nursing home seminar that was held that day, April 25th. So was Bill Clinton even in Little Rock on April 25th, 1978? Despite our repeated requests, the White House would not answer that question and declined to release any information about his schedule. So we checked 45 Arkansas newspapers and talked to a dozen former Clinton staffers. We found no evidence that Clinton had any public appearances on the morning in question. Articles in Arkansas newspapers suggest he was in Little Rock that day. And remember the little building Broaddrick says Clinton pointed to just before the alleged assault in the hotel room? We checked that too, and in fact the Pulaski County Jail was visible from rooms facing the river. It has since been demolished. But what happened after the alleged assault? It turns out just 3 weeks later, Broaddrick actually attended a Clinton fundraiser with her first husband.
Some people would wonder why you would go to a fundraiser for someone who you say sexually assaulted you. Couldn't you have said you were sick or
gotten out of it?
I think I was still in denial that time exactly what had happened to me. And I still felt very guilty at that time, but it was my fault. By letting him come to the room, I had given him the wrong idea, and just shut up and accept your punishment and don't ever do it again.
Broderick also told us Clinton called her a half dozen times at the nursing home. She says he got through once and asked her when she was coming back to Little Rock. Her response, she says, "I'm not." Then in 1979, a year after the alleged assault, Broderick was named by Clinton to a non-paying position on a state advisory board. Did you have reservations, though, about accepting any appointment by Governor Clinton?
Yes, but I had more or less said to the association that I would do this before I knew that it was actually a governor appointing job. When I agreed to do this, I had no idea it was an appointment.
Over the years, Broderick says she had business dealings with the governor's office, but not Clinton personally. In 1984, she received a letter signed by Clinton after her nursing home was named one of the state's best facilities. At the bottom, a handwritten note that says, "I admire you very much." A routine political thank you? She interprets it as a thank you for her silence. In 1990, Clinton honored one of the patients at the nursing home, but Broderick says she wasn't there and didn't learn of the visit until after the fact. Broderick says she had no face-to-face contact with Clinton until 1991, when she attended a meeting in Little Rock with two friends. They all say it was a nursing home meeting, but none can remember the date, nor do they have any records, so we can't confirm it. Broderick does remember that she was suddenly called out of the meeting, and she says to her surprise, there was Bill Clinton in the hallway. One friend says she saw them talking.
And he immediately began this profuse apology, saying, "Juanita, I'm so sorry for what I did." He would say things like, "I'm not the man that I used to be. Can you ever forgive me? What can I do to make this up to you?" And I'm standing there in absolute shock. And I told him to go to hell, and I walked off.
But Broderick remained silent when she learned soon after that Clinton was making a bid for the Oval Office. Here the man is running for president. Doesn't the country have a right to know this?
Yes, and that's what I got to thinking about. And David and I talked about it. We talked about it, and I cried about it, and then we decided that it wouldn't be in our best interest to do it.
In fact, Clinton's political opponents say she rebuffed their efforts to get her to come forward before the 1992 election. After she turned them down, one of the men suggested she had been paid off. Did you receive any payoff to stay silent?
Oh, goodness, no. I mean, how could anyone be bribed or paid off for something that, to not say anything about something that horrible?
Did Bill Clinton or anyone near him ever threaten you, try to intimidate you, do anything to keep you silent?
No.
This has been strictly your choice?
Yes.
Broderick says she was determined to keep the incident quiet, but in 1997, her hand was forced when she was subpoenaed by Paula Jones' lawyers. She filed an affidavit in that case, under oath as Jane Doe number 5, denying any unwelcome sexual advances by Clinton. She said these allegations are untrue, and there is no truth to the rumors.
I didn't want to be forced to testify about the most horrific event of my life. I didn't want to go through it again.
She later told the same story, denying the assault, in a sworn deposition in the Jones case. Last March, another woman comes forward, Kathleen Willey, accuses the president of unwanted sexual advances. Why didn't you come forward?
I seriously considered it then. I would get up sometimes in the morning and I would think, it's the thing to do, I'm going to do it. Then by nighttime I'd think, that can bring no good whatsoever to my life. And I'm sorry for these women. I'm sorry for what they went through. But I just wasn't brave enough to do it. There's nothing else to say.
But she changed her mind and changed her story when independent counsel Ken Starr's office approached her last April, investigating wrongdoing in the Jones case. Broderick says she feared lying to a federal grand jury, and once Starr granted her immunity from prosecution for perjury, She agreed to come forward with details of her allegations against Clinton. But Starr did not pursue the allegations further because he was investigating obstruction of justice charges against the president. Broderick never alleged any obstruction, said the president never urged her to lie. Finally, after months of contact with us, Broderick decided to speak to NBC News on January 20th, in the middle of the Senate impeachment trial. Why now, Juanita?
I just couldn't hold it in any longer. I didn't want granddaughters and nieces, when they're 21 years old, to turn to me and say, "Why didn't you tell what this man did to you?"
We repeatedly asked the White House what it knew about Juanita Broderick, about her character or possible motivation. We got no response. We checked with local and federal law enforcement officials, who told us she's a solid citizen with no criminal record, and that they take her allegations seriously. Broderick knows that some people have suggested her injuries 21 years ago were inflicted not by Clinton, but by her first husband, Gary Hickey. Divorce papers obtained by NBC News show that 1 year after the alleged assault by Clinton, Juanita and Hickey had an altercation. She says Hickey struck her in the mouth. He told NBC News it was an accident. Broderick says that is the only time her husband hit her, and there are no records of an earlier incident. Could Broderick have a financial motive? Is she hoping to cash in? She says she and her husband are financially comfortable, have turned down an offer to tell her story for money, and have no plans for anything else. No book deal?
No book deal.
No
Absolutely
lawsuit?
not. I have no desire to sue Bill Clinton. I have no desire to write a book.
Finally, did Broderick have any other motivation for going public now with her allegations? Were politics behind the decision? Broderick's personal attorney is a Republican state senator in Arkansas, but he says he did not know she decided to go public until after she agreed to talk to NBC. Broderick says she is not registered with any political party, and the Brodericks say they have donated money to both Republican and Democratic candidates. What is the purpose? Do you want to destroy the president?
No, I don't want to do anything. I do not have an agenda. I want to put all of these rumors to rest. I buried this a long time ago, Lisa. And the only thing I'm trying to do right now is to clear up all of these stories that are out there.
But after all this time, how does Juanita Broderick feel about Bill Clinton?
I couldn't say it on the air. My hatred for him is overwhelming.
Overwhelming enough to invent a story, to distort a memory, all to destroy a presidency? Absolutely not, she says. 20 years after it happened, having never reported it to authorities, after signing an affidavit denying anything ever happened, you now come forward. You understand how skeptical people may be?
Certainly I can. But I was also afraid of what would happen to me if I came forward. I was afraid that I would be destroyed like so many of the other women have been.
Do you understand the enormity of what you're saying to him and to you?
Yes, I do. It's been a hard, long, uphill battle to make these statements. But I feel like I have to. I feel like I have to make these statements now.
So now there is a face, a voice, a name for Jane Doe number 5. Her story, just the rumor of it, has influenced politics and journalism, opened up her own life to public scrutiny, and cast yet another shadow over the president, who denies the charge. In the end, the questions remain. Was it sexual assault? Could it have been consensual sex? Did anything happen at all? We may never know, and that may be the unsatisfying ending to the story of Jane Doe number 5.
What won't end is the debate over whether Juanita Broderick's story is true, whether it has any political relevance, and whether the media, including NBC News, should have reported it. Much more on that, including viewer comments, later tonight on Hockenberry on MSNBC and on the internet at msnbc.com.
So after all this, you may think to yourself, is Juanita Broderick telling the truth? The answer is, depending on the lie detector test. Now, if she were to take a lie detector test, it would prove that either it happened or it didn't. Remember, she says she doesn't remember. But after NBC News started investigating, we do know it was April 25th, 1970. So if she were to take a lie detector test during that time, she would pass. But if she failed, then, we'd be going back to square one. Next, Stone Phillips interviews another woman who was accused of Bill Clinton of probably the same thing. So, what's next for this woman? Please stay with us. Welcome back, Susan McDougal. Now, that's the second name in this case. It may have something to do with Bill Clinton, but this was not. It was but it has something to do with the Whitewater scandal. Ken Starr probably wasn't involved, but if he was involved, it would have been all about sexual assault. It'd be about a real estate contract, and as you're about to hear, this could even take. This could even take this, giving me the third layer to the Bill Clinton cake. So we did Kathleen Lilly, Juanita Broaddrick, and now we're talking about Susan McDougal. 3 layers to the cake. And it's also the beer, the band, and the bar stool. Here's Stone Phillips. Oh, and Juanita's the bit. Kathleen Lilly's the beer, Juanita Broaddrick's the band, and Susan McDougal is the bar stool. Here's Stone Phillips.
Has it occurred to you, Susan, that by not talking, by letting people continue to wonder about what she knows, is she hiding something that you may be doing a disservice to the president?
This isn't about the president. He can take care of himself. This is about what they've done to me and to my family in the course of this investigation.
It's been more than a year since Susan McDougal was caught in the Whitewater net. But unlike others, including her ex-husband, who caved and cooperated, she has remained silent. And though she has served harder time than many murderers, locked down in isolation, left in a county jail for months in spite of a judge's order that she be transferred, she says it has only stiffened her spine and her belief that prosecutor Kenneth Starr and his investigators will stop at nothing in what she calls the Whitewater witch hunt.
They cared little for the people that they stomped along the way, the people they ran over along the way to get to Bill Clinton. And that is exactly why I liken Ken Starr to a Nazi, because the end to him justified the means.
Good afternoon. Kenneth Starr, a Nazi? To understand the depth of Susan McDougal's hatred for the man who had her jailed, you have to understand the depth of her love for the woman who's been her inspiration.
I wouldn't be my mother's daughter if I didn't see this through.
Susan seems to feel that she's following in your footsteps with the stand that she has taken.
In a way, it makes me sad. And in a way, I'm very proud of her.
Susan McDougal's mother, Lorette Henley, knows all about standing firm under enormous pressure. As a teenager in Nazi-occupied Belgium, she saw firsthand how the Gestapo turned neighbor against neighbor, forcing people to lie about loved ones, who were then arrested or shot. She says her family defied them, going so far as to hide resistance fighters in their basement. They were staying with your family?
Yes.
And if the Nazis had found them there?
We were all shot the next day.
Those lessons from the war were often told around the family dinner table in Camden, Arkansas, but never with more at stake than in September 1996, the night before Susan was scheduled to testify before a Whitewater grand jury. She'd already been convicted of fraud, and she says prosecutors were offering to lighten her 2-year sentence if she'd testify against the Clintons. But that night, she called her family together to tell them not only was she turning down the deal, she wasn't going to testify at all. Did you try to talk her out of it?
I must admit that I did.
I said, Mom, I've told them I don't know anything they did wrong.
They want me to lie about the Clintons. I told her, I said, my goodness, this sounded just like the Nazis.
She threw her hands in the air. She said, if I can stand up to them, you can stand up to this.
I told her I'd pray for her. And she left. And the next day, I turned the TV on and she was in chains.
When Susan was hauled off in chains a year ago, It was for contempt of court, ordered to jail until she agrees to answer questions from the prosecutor she likens to a Nazi.
Is it fair to compare Kenneth Starr to the Nazis? Is Starr just doing what prosecutors do every day in this country, offering leniency to those who cooperate and upping the pressure on those who don't talk?
Well, I was taught that a prosecutor's job is to seek justice. And if he is truly seeking justice, if he is truly seeking someone who has broken the law to take them to justice, perhaps what he'd want to hear is the truth.
But Ken Starr says he's not asking you to lie, just to answer questions.
No, they specifically asked me to lie.
Whitewater investigators flatly deny that. They say while Susan McDougal cannot be forced to cooperate, she must do what dozens of others have done. Answer questions in a lawful investigation.
But presidential aides like Mac McClarty, even Hillary Clinton herself, has gone in and testified before the grand jury. They're no fans of Ken Starr's either.
No,
but
that's
they went
true.
and they did it. Why should it be different for you?
Because I was convicted of something I didn't do. They were convicting me so that I would testify against Bill Clinton.
What exactly was she convicted of? And what more does Kenneth Starr think she knows? The Clinton-McDougal connection dates back to Clinton's earliest days in Arkansas politics. Jim and Susan, Bill and Hillary campaigned together, and they invested together in this property along the White River. The McDougals, already successful real estate developers, were giving their up-and-coming political pals, the Clintons, a chance to cash in on what they thought would be a surefire investment.
You're the one who came up with the name, Whitewater.
That's true.
More than a place to live, it's a way to live, you wrote in one of the brochures. Serene, simple, and honest.
It was a beautiful place when I went to see it.
But as beautiful and promising as it seemed, by 1985, Whitewater was losing money. The lots weren't selling. And for the first time in a television interview, Susan McDougal told Dateline about the financial pressures and mounting tension between the Clintons and the McDougals over the investment.
Is it true that long before there was any investigation, Bill Clinton was ready to get out of it, and Hillary said, no, we want to stay in?
Yes. That's true.
Is it true that you actually were sent over with the paperwork to see Hillary?
That's true.
What happened?
She declined to sign the paperwork to divest themselves of Whitewater.
What'd she tell you?
She said she didn't understand. She just couldn't understand it, that Jim had promised her that this was going to be something that would work. And she told me that Jim had even brought up the fact that it would pay her child's way through college. And she was very disappointed and upset about it.
Very adamant?
Yes. That conversation with her and the dealings that Jim had with her subsequently are the genesis of his great hatred and bitterness toward the Clintons.
They wanted this to work and were putting pressure on him to make it work? Hillary in particular?
Yes.
Did you feel that pressure?
I knew that Jim was upset, and that upset me because I tried to always get done what Jim wanted done.
She says as the months passed, the tension between the two couples grew. The McDougals felt the Clintons didn't appreciate how much money she and Jim were putting into Whitewater to keep it going.
At one point you went to see Hillary Clinton with a legal pad showing this is what we've put in.
This was after we had lost everything that we had, and I was telling her, we are trying very hard to make this work, even, in difficult circumstances.
But your point was, if you think, you've got money invested here,
yes.
Look what we've got invested.
Yes.
That there was a lot more at stake for you than for them.
Yes, I wanted very much for her to understand how hard we were trying.
But prosecutors say they tried too hard. In April 1986, a few months after Susan says an angry Hillary Clinton told her to make Whitewater work, the McDougals took out this $300,000 loan. It was arranged by Jim, but taken out in Susan's name because the money was from a government-backed program to help women in small business. It was fraud, prosecutors say, because some of that money was diverted illegally to pay bills for Whitewater. Susan insists she did nothing wrong and is appealing her conviction.
But you signed for that $300,000 loan.
Yes, I signed for many loans during the course of my marriage.
Because Jim McDougal told you to do it.
Yes.
And so you did it.
Absolutely. I would have done anything Jim asked me to do because, in my mind at that time, he was utterly trustworthy.
The crucial question in the Whitewater investigation is whether Bill Clinton, then governor of Arkansas, was also involved in the loan. Clinton denies it.
No.
And for years, Jim McDougal backed him up. But in this interview last April, McDougal told Dateline he had changed his story.
I just got sick and tired of lying for the fella.
He told us about a key meeting with David Hale, the man who issued the loan.
Was Bill Clinton there?
We were together at Casa Grande, yes.
There with David Hale?
Yes.
Talking about a loan?
Yes.
For Susan McDougal?
Yes.
Should we believe Jim McDougal?
I can tell you that the David Hale story, which has now become the Jim McDougal story since he was convicted in the trial, is not true.
And what about Jim McDougal's suggestion, first reported in the New Yorker magazine, that Susan is protecting the president because she may have had an affair with him? She says there's no truth to that either.
It's rank speculation on his part.
Oh, it's worse than that. It's totally made up.
How hurtful has it been to you?
It has not been hurtful to me because I know where it came from. I knew how angry Jim was with me, that I would not cooperate in the sense of telling that same David Hale story that he told. I'm sure that when I wouldn't say yes to all of that, he felt betrayed. And the real thing I feel when I hear it is, God, Jim, how did we come to this? How did we come to this, the two of us?
She denies the affair. But what about the key question Whitewater prosecutors are dying to ask her under oath about Bill Clinton and that illegal loan?
Can you say that you never talked to Bill Clinton about that loan?
I'm not going to answer any questions that might help Kenneth Starr in his investigation.
For more than a year, she has stood her ground behind bars, refusing to answer those questions. She says she is standing on principle, unwilling to lie. But prosecutors say she's a convicted criminal who has engaged in a pattern of deceit, all too willing to lie on things as big as that $300,000 loan and as small as a string of job applications introduced as evidence at her sentencing.
I want to hear your explanation, Susan, for something that the prosecutors point to as evidence that you have lied to hide things.
Okay.
The application for your first job after you left Arkansas to try to make a fresh start. You wrote from 1976 to 1988 you worked for Tucker Smith McDonald. There's no such entity, no such company, is there?
I made up the company that I worked for.
She even made up the company address, listing the house where Jim McDougal was living. And her supervisor? Instead of Jim McDougal, she put J. McDonald. There were also lies on this application in Michigan and this one for a job in Tennessee.
I didn't put half the things I had done because I was afraid I couldn't get a job if I did.
Well, it's not about whether you exaggerated up or down, Susan. It's about whether you told the truth. It's about whether you told the truth on the application.
That's true. That's true. I needed a job very badly. And to do typing and to do filing and just to do simple things. It was the simplest job I could get so that I could just eat, pay my bills, and live a normal life that I hadn't lived in a long time.
The prosecutors say the way you did it just shows deceit.
But I'll tell you, I was very proud of the fact at the sentencing hearing that the very worst thing they could say about me, the very worst thing the prosecutors could say about me was that I had made a bad resume. I walked out of that courtroom with my head so high.
And when the Whitewater investigation is finally over, Susan McDougal says Bill Clinton should hold his head high too.
If you cross paths with Bill Clinton in Arkansas, years down the road, what will you say to him?
I would say congratulations for making it. That someone can work so hard and someone from Arkansas can get to where he got. I'm glad of that. I hope it's true for all of us.
Does Bill Clinton owe you a thank you for the stance that you have taken?
I don't know. I don't really, this is really about me, you know?
Did you expect a pardon?
No. In fact, I don't want a pardon. I didn't do anything wrong. I feel like a pardon is saying, well, you did this, and it's okay. You know, I do not want a pardon. Not interested. Not asking for one, not accepting one.
Your family says you could make 2 phone calls. One to the prosecutors, one to a publisher. And you'd be free, and you'd be rich. Are those phone calls you'll ever make?
No. No, I've put in a year of my life about something I believe so strongly in, that this man is really wrong in what he's doing. And I will never, ever be sorry for what I've done.
The White House declined to comment on our interview and referred us to the Clintons' private attorney, David Kendall. He also declined to comment. As for Susan McDougal, she has a long road ahead. Even when she finishes her jail time for contempt, she still faces 2 years in federal prison for her fraud conviction involving that $300,000 loan.
So now we got Ken Starr, we got Susan McDougal, Juanita Broaddrick, and Kathleen Willey. Those are all the layers in the cake. Stories aren't over yet. Coming up on Friday, there's more. Now we're going into Linda Tripp. We're going to have that story for you come up on Friday with the Nancy Collins interview of Linda Tripp. Then on Saturday, to put the icing on top of the cake, it's Monica Lewinsky in her own words. A special Game Break Saturday you don't want to miss. So that's all for this edition of Game Break Thursday. Going to Friday. We'll see you again tomorrow for Game Break Friday for Linda Tripp. For all of us here at YouTube, give me a break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Take care of yourself and each other. Good night.